In this video, Jordan Peterson explains how far you should look into your future and how unpredictable your environment can be.
One thing you might ask is, well, what time span are you usually dealing with? You know, because what the world's made of depends on the time span. And that's a tough one. We know that it's more than 1/10 of a second. But you can think years into the future, right? So I might say, well, why are you going to university? Or I might say, what are you doing right now? And then the answer would be, well, I'm sitting in class. And then the question would be, well, why are you sitting in class? And the answer to that would be, well, because I want to take this course. And why? Well, it's because I want to get my degree. So why? Well, because I want to be prepared for a career and a productive and high quality life when I get out. Well, why? Well, you can keep saying why pretty much indefinitely, and as you answer, you go farther and farther out in time scales. Now, it's a tricky thing because one of the things I might tell you, this is a very complex cognitive problem, is, well, where should you stop? So, for example, I could say to you, do you want $100 an hour or do you want 50,000 years in 75 years? You're going to think, well, I'll probably take the $100 now. Well, how about 200 years? It's like, well, I'm not going to be there. I'll take the $100 now. Well, so obviously thinking out 200 years is not that helpful. Now, you might think, well, no, you should calculate the effects of your actions on the vastest time span possible and include the largest number of people if you're really going to equilibrate it. But the problem is you can't do the computations because you get this thing called combinatorial explosion happening, which is that it's like a chessboard. You make one move, okay, fine. But then you could make four, and then with each of those you could make four more, and then with each of those you could make four more. And soon, if you're looking 20 moves ahead, it's like there's so many moves that the other person could possibly make that looking that far ahead is pointless. You can't do the computations. And so we don't know how far you should look into the future. It depends on how stable your environment is. But 1 month seems okay. A year, yeah. 3 to 5 years, that's what I'll have you do when you do the future authoring program. 20 years? Probably not. And the reason for that is the margin of error in your prediction grows so large that your prediction isn't worth anything. And you can really see how that's the case now, because like, what's it going to be like in 20 years? When I was a kid, I used to read science fiction. It was like plausible accounts of the potential future. It's like, now? Who knows? Anything could happen. Anything could happen. You could be 3/4 a robot in 20 years. You could have a lifespan of 10,000 years. I mean, we just do not know. We could be living in caves again with everything in ruins. We don't have a clue what's going to happen. So 20-year span, I would say, get friendly with computers. So 20-year span's too long. So, okay, anyways, what I'm pointing out is that you have to calculate what you're doing across multiple spans of time and in that combination, in combination with many, many people. And that makes things very complex, but that's how you're building the structures that you live within. All right, so back to this. You're at point A, you're going to point B. So you are somewhere. Now, that's interesting. You are somewhere. Now, generally what people think about when they think about being somewhere is that they're in a place. But you're not just in a place. You're in a place at a time. And I really want to stress that because we know that the universe, we know that the environment is 4-dimensional, not 3-dimensional. And that's important because you can be in the same place and in the next second you're still where you were, but you're in a completely different place. So for example, if someone walked in here with a pistol, this would not be the same place. Okay, so there's a reason I'm telling you that. And then there's the future, and that's also a place in time and a place in space. Okay. Now, you're getting from one point to the other. And you're going to do that by implementing certain behaviors. Now, you might say, what can happen while you're doing that? Well, here's 3 things that can happen. The thing you want, that can happen. Something you don't want, but that you understand, and something you don't understand at all. Something completely beyond your comprehension. And that would generally be a traumatizing event of some sort. So you can either know what's going to happen, or you can not know but still be able to cope with it, or you can not know and not cope with it. And of the negative ones, they correspond to that hierarchy, right? If it's a little thing that you don't understand, you just modify a little behavior. If it's a big thing that you don't understand, well then what? Well then everything falls apart. You don't know where you are, you don't know where you're going, and all the behaviors you have are not helpful. And that's when your world falls apart. Okay, so generally that doesn't happen. So I want to walk to the, let's say I set my target on the door, I'm going to walk to the door. So here's what happens. Instantly, I have slight negative emotion about the fact that any of you people in the way exist. Because what my brain is doing is reconfiguring the world to chart a straight path, and anything that's in the way is going to make me uneasy, frustrated, disappointed, anxious. And you can think about this when you do house design, by the way. So when you're setting up a room, what you want to do is figure out what the room is for. Then you want to clear the paths for that. Because then when you walk into the room will say, welcome, you can do the things you want to do here easily. And if you don't do that, it's all cluttered up. It's like, there's no difference between that and being confused mentally. It's exactly the same thing. So, okay. So let's say now I stand up and that works, and then I walk that way and that way and that way. I keep my eyes on the door, and I'm getting towards the door. Well, I'm moderately positive about that, because I'm getting where I'm going, but I'm also moderately positive about it because the fact that I'm getting where I'm going validates my whole theory. So one of the things that the behaviorists didn't get right when they were thinking about punishment, like if an animal lays out a behavior and you punish it, it'll stop manifesting that behavior. But that isn't all that happens. You think about punishing a human being. They stop manifesting the behavior, but the behavior isn't the whole damn thing. The thing they're in is this. It's the whole thing. It's a conception of where they are. It's a conception of where they're going. And it's all the behaviors that they might need to get there. So, maybe they'll try to circumvent the punishment, walk around it. Maybe they'll try a few more behaviors. But what happens, so I'm tied by a chain and I don't know it. I'm tied by a chain to the wall. I start walking that way and I figure out that I'm chained. Well, so much for that stupid theory. I'm not getting to the door. I'm going to let that view of the world disintegrate. I'm going to be very upset about that. And then I have to come up with another one, which might be, well, how do I get rid of the chain? So when you fail, two things happen. The behavior that you're manifesting doesn't work. That's the old behaviorist routine. But it's worse than that, because the whole little personality that you're using to construe the world falls apart. And the more important the thing is that has fallen apart, the more of a catastrophe it's going to be for you. Okay, so let's say you're going to medical school. That's what you want to do. All right, so you're taking the course to write the exam, to pass the course with an A, to apply to medical school, to get into medical school, to become a doctor. You fail the test. What just happened? Well, did your whole future fall apart? Or did you just fail the test? Well, who knows, right? Maybe your whole future just fell apart. It's like, now you have a GPA of 3.3. It's like, nope, you have to go to the Caribbean to a private medical school. You're not going to get in anywhere in Canada or the United States. It's like, okay, is your life over? Do you jump off a bridge? Well, sometimes people do. And it's because the little sub-personality that they created, which is the me that will be a doctor, it's one of these things, the little story, it's so integral to their entire identity that when it collapses, they're done. And people get suicidal when that sort of thing happens.